Welcome everybody. My name is Felipe, and I want to welcome you all to this Wyzant's Getting Ready for Spanish. Today, we are going to be covering Spanish 2. And if you were here last week with us, I welcome you again. I'm glad that you were able to join. Just a few reminders for everybody. The first thing I want to say is that today we are going to be covering a lot of themes, a lot of aspects, a lot of topics that you are going to have to study this year in Spanish 2. Okay, so the topics, they have been chosen by what I have seen during all these years tutoring Spanish. Okay. It may be possible that in your school district or in your teacher or the book that you are following in class, you have slightly different topics, but the things that we are going to see today together are going to be there for sure. Okay? So again, welcome, and I hope this is useful for everybody in attendance. All right, so let's start. You know that if you have questions, you can ask me. You can ask me about the topics. You can ask me if you don't understand something. I'll be more than happy to help you again and repeat myself if I have to. So don't worry. Feel free to ask any questions you may have. Okay, so let's start. I am going to share my screen and I'm going to take you to the Wyzant whiteboard where I have prepared a few things that I hope you find interesting and beneficial. Okay, here we are. So the first thing you are going to have to study and understand really well is the direct and indirect objects and object pronouns. What are those? Well, these direct and indirect object pronouns, you have them in English, and this is when we use pronouns to refer to objects or people that we have mentioned in the past in our conversation. For example, if I know you are talking about your mom and you are talking about a gift that you bought yesterday, you maybe ended up saying something like, oh yeah, I bought it for my mom. That it means the gift. And instead of for my mom, you could say also, yeah, I bought it for her. Now you are referring to the gift as an it, and you're also referring to your mom as for her. Well, that is what this is, direct and indirect objects are. Now in Spanish, of course, they're going to be a little different. For example, we have a couple of examples here. Lleva un regalo a su abuela, okay? He's taking a gift for her grandmother. So the gift will be the direct object, and abuela, for the grandma, will be the indirect object. Now, how will we say that, not mentioning gift or not mentioning abuela? It will be something like, se lo lleva. Se lo lleva. How do we come out with that? Well, gorra in Spanish will be either lo or la, or los or las, depending of if this is a feminine or if it's a masculine noun. You remember Spanish 1, we put a lot of emphasis on this is masculine or this is feminine, right? This is why. This doesn't go away. I was saying that last week. This doesn't go away, guys. So please, this masculine feminine thing, something very important. Gorra, in this case, which means a baseball cap, is feminine. So this will be Cindy la compró. Cindy la compró. And if you want to say para mí, In that case, you will choose me, which means para mí. So the sentence will end up being Cindy me la compró. Cindy bought it for me. This is it, okay? Again, I'm explaining a very hard and complicated concept in 3 minutes. So you may have some questions. Feel free to ask, all right? We continuing with the direct and indirect object pronouns, okay? These are the pronouns that you're gonna be memorizing. There is not much to memorize. Fortunately, that is easy because most of them are identical, like me, te. The only ones that change are these ones right here, okay? Those will be different, and these ones here also will be a little different, okay? So it's not like you're gonna have to memorize a lot. As a matter of fact, the more you use it, you're gonna be using this a lot, okay? The more you use it, the easier it's going to be to remember. And we have a few examples here, okay? Pronombres del complemento directo, because that one is the one that changes more. Like compro el libro is masculine. So to say I bought it or I buy it, we will use lo compro. Compro los libros, we want to say I buy them, los compro. Okay, compro la revista, magazine. Revista is feminine, so la compro, I buy it. O compro las revistas. Revistas also is feminine, but it's plural in this case. So to say I buy them, las compro. All right? So again, this is very important when you are having a conversation. That's why it's part of the Spanish 2 curriculum. Because in order to have a fluent conversation in a natural way of speaking, you will need to use this pronoun. Okay? Very well. This is part of what you have to learn, what you are going to have to study. Now, but there's more. The past tense. Last week, we were explaining the concept of conjugation, and we were explaining how to conjugate in the present tense. This year, you are going to be learning about the past tense. And in Spanish, this can be a little tricky because we have two different kind of past tenses, and you have to learn both of them. We have what we call el pretérito, or the preterite, and el imperfecto, or the imperfect. These both refer to things that have happened in the past, all right? But preterite is for more specific events versus imperfect, which will be used for descriptive actions to describe something in the past, among other things, okay? Something to have in mind, the preterite is hard to conjugate. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. The preterite tense is hard to conjugate, but it's easy to use. The imperfect tense, quite the opposite. It is very easy to conjugate, but it is a little hard to use because you don't have that in English. So if your mother tongue is English, you don't have imperfect tense per se. Okay, you have something similar, but it's not the same. So it can be a little hard to get your head around the idea of the imperfect tense. Okay, but it's, on the other hand, it's very easy to conjugate. Okay, let's talk about the conjugations in the in the preterite tense. And conjugating, as you may remember from last week or from last year, conjugating means that for every person that we say that is doing an action, okay, we have to change the ending of the verb. In English, in the past tense, generally speaking, for regular verbs, you will add an ed to the infinitive, okay? And that's it. That is conjugating in English. You add an ed, it doesn't matter who's doing the action, you just put an ed at the end. Of if it is an irregular verb, you just choose, you go to the irregular verbs and you go to the middle column right there and you choose that. In Spanish, that's a little bit more complicated, as you already know from last year, okay? In order to conjugate, if you have a regular verb, you will go to the ending AR, ER, or IR, okay? And you will use these endings depending on who is doing the action, okay? For I, you're gonna put an E, you're gonna remove the AR of the verb, you're gonna put an E. For tú, you're gonna put aste, o, amos, astes, o, aron. For ER verbs, it will be I, iste, yo, imos, istes, dieron. And for IR, it's exactly the same. Okay, ER and IR conjugate exactly the same on this case. We have a couple of examples here. Bailar, to dance. If I wanna say, I danced yesterday, yo bailé ayer. If I wanna say, you ate cereal yesterday, tú comiste cereales ayer. If I want to say, we lived in New York last year, nosotros vivimos en Nueva York el año pasado. Okay? So this is a new set of endings that you need to memorize, a new set of endings that you need to practice, but this is simple. The regular verbs are simple, okay? Just remember these endings and you will be good to go with that, okay? Now, on the other hand, we have also stem changing verbs. We have a lot of irregular verbs in the preterite. We have spelling changes that makes learning the preterite a little bit complicated because you need to memorize tons of stuff. I'm sorry about it, but that is the way it is. That's what it is. You're gonna have to do a lot of memorization for this one and a lot of thinking before you fill out those blanks. When you are doing exercises, conjugating in the preterite, just double check your answers, please, because you may be dealing with a stem changing verbs. If you remember, a stem changing verb is the one that not only changes the ending when it conjugates, but also changes a vowel. For example, we have servir right here, which means to serve. The yo form will just do servi, okay? You remove the IR, you add an I. The tu form, you remove the IR, you add iste. But the él or the ella form, you are gonna remove the IR, you're gonna put an IO, but this E is gonna change into an I. And the same is gonna happen with the ellos form. The E is gonna change into an I, besides adding the right ending, okay? And that's gonna happen with many verbs that are stem changing verbs, okay? You see preferir, this E is gonna change to an I right here. It also happens on pedir, it also happens on repetir, all the time for the él and the ellos form. So please, just remember that. I may be asking for for too much. Some of you may thinking this is sometimes very hard to remember. So please pay attention when your teacher is explaining this, because is important, okay? And as you can imagine, since we want you to know this, guess what? If you have a test on preterite, this is coming up. This is gonna be there, okay? Now we have irregular verbs. They are called irregular because they don't follow these rules. They don't follow these endings. They do whatever they want. So you just need to memorize it, okay? We have a few verbs that are hard to memorize. Others are easy. We usually put them in groups to make memorization easier. So this is just a memorization game. There is a total of 34 irregular verbs. These are the ones that you're gonna be using the most, okay? This is just an example. And finally, we have the car-gar-sar rule. That means when we conjugate in the yo form, if the verb ends in car, in gar, or in sar, it's going to do a little change. It's going to do a spelling change. The C is going to change to QU, the G to GU, or the Z goes to a C. All right? Again, it's just a matter of remembering. And guess what? On that test that is coming on preterite verbs, preterite tense, this is showing up. So when your teacher explains this, please pay attention, ask a lot of questions, do the exercises. It's the only way to make sure you understand and that you do right, you do good. All right. Now, for the imperfect tense, the other past tense, the endings are a lot easier. For AR verbs, we have these. For ER and IR, we have these endings. And we have 3 irregular verbs, ser, ir, and ver. That's it. This is it for the imperfect tense. Conjugating in the imperfect tense. Like I mentioned before, the preterite tense is hard to use, but it's easy. Quite the opposite. I'm sorry. I'm reading imperfect and I'm going with no. Preterite tense is hard to conjugate. It is easy to use because it's very straightforward, just like in English. Imperfect tense is easy to conjugate. This is all you need, but it's a little harder to use. Well, when do we use one versus when do we use the other? Here we have it. Preterite, imperfect. So both, please remember this, both are past tenses. Both are used to describe things that happened already. Now the preterite, we use it to talk about a single past action, like what I ate yesterday. Yesterday I ate, what did I do? Chicken. Yesterday I ate chicken. Yo comí, okay, let me put it here. Comer esto ir, and I'm talking about myself, so yo, I remove the ER and I'm going to put the I. Yo comí pollo. Okay, preterite tense, something that happened yesterday. Also, if we talk about things that happen in a sequence, like what I did yesterday, okay? Yo comí pollo, coma, luego, what did I do later after I ate? Okay, I ate dessert. Comí postre, and then I brushed my teeth. Okay, me lavé los dientes. Okay, I did one thing after another. They all happened yesterday. Preterite tense. Okay, and then this is also very important. Number 3 here on preterite is related to number 3 on the imperfect. Okay, let's focus on the imperfect for a second. it says here, actions in progress in the past. Like when we say I was running, then I will use the imperfect tense. When it's something that used to happen in the past, like when I was a child, I used to go on vacation every year. That would be the imperfect tense. Okay? Now we have the interrupted action that is related to number 3 on the preterite. Okay? When we have two actions and one interrupts the other, the one action that was happening will be the imperfect. And the action that happened and interrupted will be always in the preterite. Okay? Like, yo comía pollo. Let's talk about yesterday. Yo comía pollo. I was eating chicken. When, tú llamaste. Sorry, tú llamaste. Yo comía pollo. Cuando tú llamaste. I was eating chicken. Would you call me? Okay? Imperfect. This is happening. This was happening. And boom, it got interrupted by your phone call. All right? That's a major thing that you are going to have to deal with. Also, when we talk about time, the weather, age, in the past, it's always the imperfect because we are describing the situation. Okay? When we are describing any situation, when we are describing how my house in Spain when I was living there was, always the imperfect. Okay, because it's not an action, it's a description, and descriptions in the past are always in the imperfect. Okay, sounds confusing? I know, it can be confusing. To be honest with you, this, for everybody that is learning Spanish, not just for school purposes, but for speaking, like for communication, this is one of the hardest things to master. Okay, and it's here on Spanish too. So please, again, if you have questions for your teachers, don't hesitate to ask. We are here to explain. We are here to help you understand. Okay? So we are happy to help you guys. Now, what else are you going to be studying this year? Well, these two verbs, saber and conocer. Last week we were talking about ser and estar. They both mean to know. Now, conocer and ser and estar, they both means to be. Conocer and saber, they both mean to know. So you will be thinking, okay, well, why do you have two verbs to say to know? There is a reason. Before we go to the reasons, I want you to know how to conjugate conocer, how to conjugate saber in the present tense, okay? Yo sé, sabe, sabe, sabemos, sabéis, saben, okay? It's a regular verb, except for the yo form that goes to sé. Conocer, same thing. It's a regular verb, except for the yo form that goes to yo conozco. Everything else is just regulars with the endings in the present tense that you already know. Okay? Why do we study this? Like I said, they both mean to know. So when do we use one? When do we use the other one? Well, we use saber to talk about facts, information, how to do something, of things you know by heart. Okay? Like, yo sé su dirección. I know his address. You know, that's fact, it's information. Okay? Ellos no saben cocinar. They don't know how to cook. So this is something that goes here. How to do something, we use saber. Ella ya sabe el abecedario. She already knows the ABCs. Okay, something that she knows as a fact, as information. It's always saber. Conocer, on the other hand, is used to talk about things that we are familiar with. It's not just that you know it, but we are familiar with that thing. It can be in person, okay? Or more indeed. Also, to talk about when we know places or when we know things, it's always conocer. No conozco a esa mujer. I don't know that woman. Okay, we are not familiar with that person. We don't know who he is or she is. Okay, ella conoce México. Does he know Mexico? That means, in other words, has he ever been in Mexico? Okay, like it has some relationship with being in a place. We know the place because we have been there. We are familiar with the place. Okay, it's not like we know about Mexico, that we know about Mexican people or about Mexican cities. No, that would be saber. That is information. Those are facts. This is more like we know Mexico because we have been there. We know the city really well. Conocer. Make sense? Okay. Again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. All right? Let's go with the next thing. The next thing, this one is very straightforward, okay? Is the article law, okay? You will be using the article law with adjectives, okay, to talk about general ideas, okay? Like lo difícil, the difficult thing, lo malo, the bad thing, lo bueno, the good thing, lo interesante, the interesting thing, lo peor, the worst part, okay? So, and this is it. This is what it is. All right, so you're gonna see a lot of laws, and you remember last week or last year we were talking about el and la as the article the, el for masculine, la for feminine. We have a law, but that law is not masculine or feminine. It's something that you cannot put a gender on. Like, lo difícil es sacar una buena nota en todos los exámenes. The hard thing or the difficult thing is to get a good grade in every test. Okay? The difficult thing, there is no masculine or feminine. There is no gender there. It's a generally, it's abstract. Okay? Lo bueno es que el maestro tiene muchos videos en línea. The good thing is that the teacher has a lot of videos. Okay? Again, it doesn't have a gender, so we are going to be using the article law. Good. Now, two more tenses. Before we were talking about the past tense, how do we have the preterite and the imperfect? Now, you are going to be studying two more tenses on Spanish too. Future tense and conditional tense. Okay? These are also very straightforward, very simple. I forgot to mention this, but the preterite tense is probably the hardest tense you are going to learn, not just this year, but ever in Spanish. Okay, so that's good news. Once you master the preterite tense, everything else, every other tense, it's going to be easy peasy. Okay, it's going to be very, very simple because the preterite is the hardest. Now, for the future tense, what do we have here? The future tense in English will be with will. Like, I will do it tomorrow. Okay? So in order to say will, in order to say this will do, in Spanish, we don't have an auxiliary verb will like you do in English. We have a different ending. We have to do another ending to the verb to create the future tense. Now, in the present, in the preterite, in the imperfect, what we were doing with the verb was to remove the AR, the ER, or the IR and add the new ending. For the future and for the conditional, that doesn't happen. Okay, we are going to add the endings to the infinitive. Okay, so let's continue with the example of comer. I mentioned before, I ate chicken yesterday. Let's talk about what I'm going to eat, what I'm gonna go to eat tomorrow. I will eat chicken tomorrow. Okay, that doesn't works very well because usually we will say I am going to eat chicken tomorrow. But let's go with that. I will eat chicken tomorrow. So we go to our infinitive, comer. Okay. Remember to say I ate chicken. What I did was to remove the ER and add the new ending. Yo comí pollo ayer. For the future, we are not doing that. Yo. Now to the infinitive, I am going to add an I. Okay. Yo comeré pollo let me put the ñ right there. Very nice. Mañana. Yo comeré pollo mañana. With an accent mark right here. Okay, with an accent mark right there. Okay, all these sentences have accent marks. Of course, we have irregular verbs like haber. We will, instead of just doing the infinitive, we will have to memorize this base. Okay, but the endings will be the same. Okay, easy to use, easy to conjugate. Trust me, guys, on this one. After you pass the preterite and the imperfect, this is gonna seem like a walk in the park. Okay, same happens with the conditional tense. Okay, the conditional is when we have to say I would go, but I can't. Okay, I will do it, but I don't have any money. So now, in order to do that in Spanish, again, to the infinitive, hablar, we are going to attach an ending. Ia, ias, ia, íamos, iais, ien. Okay, and they are going to be the same endings for all kind of verbs. Now, like we have comer. Yo comería pollo. I will eat chicken, but I have pasta. Pero tengo pasta. Okay, I will eat chicken, but I ate it yesterday, so I don't want to eat chicken anymore. So, comería pollo, pero lo comí ayer. Okay, and then I'm using an indirect object pronoun. Oh, let me write it down. Okay, comería pollo, pero lo comí ayer. All right. See, I will eat chicken. Comer plus ia. I will eat chicken, but lo comí ayer. I ate it yesterday. Preterite. This lo is the direct object pronoun for chicken. Okay, we were talking about that before. All right. So again, this is very similar to the future tense. You have irregular verbs. For the irregular verbs, we don't attach the endings to the infinitive. We have to learn the stem. Okay, and these are all of them. These are all of them. So not a lot to memorize on this one. That is a good thing. All right. And then finally, the other big thing that you are going to learn is what we call mandatos or commands. That means to tell people what to do. You usually are going to do this on when we talk about health and going to the doctor and the doctor telling us to drink more water, exercise more, things like that. Okay, so a lot of students, a lot of books, they teach this when they talk about health on vocab. All right, how do we create these mandatos? Well, there is this is just an example here. Like we go to the yo form of hablar in the present tense, we remove the O, and if it is an AR verb, we are going to add an E. If it is an ER verb, we are going to add an A. So if you want to tell somebody to speak slowly, you will say, hable despacio, por favor, please. Okay, So that is what a command is. You're telling people what to do. It doesn't mean that you are ordering people, and no, it has nothing to do with that. Although when we say commands, people think about that, but no. Or like comer, you go to the doctor and oh, you have to eat healthier, you have to eat more vegetables, okay? So the doctor is not gonna be using yo como, because yo como means I eat. The doctor wants to use coma. Again, we go to the yo form, we remove the O, and since comer is an ER verb, we are gonna do the switcheroo. Is goes to A goes to E. Okay, so the doctor will tell us, coma más verduras. Eat more vegetables. Okay, commands, they come in the usted form, the ustedes form, if you want to talk to a group of people. Okay, coman más verduras is like, you guys eat more vegetables, all of you, the whole group. Okay, not just one person. So again, this is also going to be part of the Spanish 2 curriculum. And I think we have covered a lot of stuff today in just 38 minutes. We cover a whole year of instruction, okay? Now, let me please remind you that when I'm mentioning the grammar, okay? And this is what that's what I'm covering right now, grammar. But it is important to remember that this goes together with a lot of new vocab. Okay, you're gonna have to be dealing with memorizing the vocabulary. Okay, if we talk about health, maybe different healthy food, verbs are gonna be like for sports and movement and gym and different gym equipment, for example. When we talk about the past tense, well, that can be pretty much anything. It depends on the book, or depends on the teacher, okay? Same thing with future and conditional, all right? It can be many, many different topics. Vocabulary is important. You may know the grammar really, really, really well, okay? But if when you have to write something, you don't remember the words, what they mean, it can be very hard, okay? Also, when you are reading, you're doing reading comprehension, and then you have to answer questions. If you don't know a lot of the vocab, you may understand the grammar, but if the vocab is missing from the picture, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Okay, so it is important that you remember the grammar as well. Okay, do you guys have any questions for me? I don't see any questions right now. I don't have any questions right now. Okay. So this is it for me, guys. I'm very happy that you were able to join us, that we were able to cover all these topics, okay? I hope this was useful for you. I really wish you a great school year. Please remember, if you are able to learn Spanish now in high school, this is a great tool to learn a very valuable skill. Tons of people in the United States that speak Spanish, and you can reach out to them if you know that language. And not just in the United States. We have tons of countries that speak Spanish, and if you get to work in South America, I work with a lot of adults not even South America, in Miami. I work with a lot of teachers, doctors that they have to learn Spanish. to do their job in Miami, okay? For example, they didn't do it in high school. You have that choice. So I encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. Okay. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for stay here with us, and I will see you next week on the next seminar for Spanish 3. Okay, you are all invited. Thank you very much. Have a great night.